I didn't know this when I first started on the journey within, or in what ended up being the spiritual path, because there was too much noise within me, and no one guided me in a way. No one said, "Hey, think about this." But now there's a more sophisticated conversation going on in the spiritual arena. I want to speak a little bit about silence. And how powerful silence is, and how, as a seeker, if that's what's brought you here, and that's what you are, how to listen both from as deep a silence as you can, and also to listen to the silence, or to feel, maybe, listen is not quite the right word, and to feel the silence that the words of the person that you're listening to is coming from. Kind of, what does that mean? Well, two aspects. I'll deal with the second one first. To listen to feel what's happening when you're listening to words that are, whoever is speaking them. This happens in all conversations in many ways. You see, we're hooked up on the surface level. We're hooked up, almost hardwired, but not really, to words. They're the essential means of communication, and a very valuable means of communication they are. But in many ways, words are of the self, right? Words are the bridges between self and world and self. That's our context, our way of communicating about ourselves, about who we are, about what we see, about what we want, is through words. Words are the language of the self. And when we receive words, certainly in the world of the self, that's what we're listening to. We're listening to the words. Do they make sense? What's being said? Do they flow? Do I understand? But deeper than that, of course, on the level of self, there's something deeper going on. There's a feeling going on. Do I trust this person? Are they talking bullshit? And I don't mean just on the mental level, because this is an intuitive sense, the gut feeling that we've learned to completely override or disregard. How do I feel about this person? Is it in resonance? Is there a resonance with what's being said? So we're already listening below the surface of the words. But generally speaking, that's how we operate. We operate on the level of language. But you come to the spiritual world, and if you bring just the same mentality to it, the same level of listening, the same fixation or concentration just on words, on the information, on the knowledge, then you miss something very valuable, and that is the silence within. Because if there's any transmission And by that, I don't mean something weird and fancy, like mind control or Shaktipat or, the benevolence of the guru. That's not in this conversation. But simple, what's the depth that this speaker, that this teacher, that this person is coming from? Because that is where the transmission is. Ramana Maharshi said, I don't know the exact words, but silence is the true teacher. And that's not just silence when we just sit like that. It's the silence within the speech, the silence within the talk, the silence within the words, the depth that they're coming from. So there's no separation there. The words flowing up as in from the, from the depth of the earth. And the words are the spring that pours forth into the world. But we focus so much on the spring that pours forth into the world that we take no notice and have no awareness, or are not instructed by, or can't taste or touch or feel the depth from which the spring comes. And I would invite you to follow it, to follow the silence, to follow the spring water to its source, because that's where the true healing is. That's where the true teaching is. And whether I seem to have it or don't have it, I don't care. I'm not talking about me, in essence. I'm talking about the way of being, the way of listening to a teacher or a wise one. The words, the frequency of the words holds the silence of their being. The frequency of the words is not separate from the silence from which the words come. That's the most important phrase of this video. So hold that and bear that in mind. And then the other one, the other aspect that I said I'd talk of is the place within you that you're listening from. Because this silence that I'm talking about is not in somebody else, it's in you. The silence is within us, but we haven't yet discovered it because there's too much noise, as there is for people, as there is for everybody, as there was for me. But that silence is in you. And the more you can allow, without just habitually listening from mind, from thought, from belief, from division, from self, from denial or judgment or any of those things, you just listen as though you're an empty vessel. Listen as though you're empty already. See what happens. Just see what happens. Don't interpret. The speed of interpretation of the human being stuck in mind is phenomenal. And my invitation is to suspend that interpretation, to suspend that movement, that endless movement, and to stay in the openness for a bit, to stay in the openness and to listen from empty as the best you can, and see where the words, the spring water comes in. Does it get all the way down? Does it get stuck somewhere on the way? Does it get stuck in mind's judgment? Does it go into the separating unit of the mind? I'll put this there and I'll put this here and I'll judge it later, or I don't agree with that, or this one's not. As all the separation, as the spring water of wisdom or something is coming in. But all it's really designed to do is to enter your own silence, so that then there's just silence, being with silence. And from that, the spring doth flow. From there, true communion happens. From there, true love blossoms. From there is union, is oneness. They're the two aspects. Listen to the source, not the words. Listen from emptiness, not the busyness of mind. Try it.